I found a Mellophone over 100 years old at a thrift store, and I'm a real sucker for vintage instruments, so I just could not pass that up. It was made in 1924 in incredible shape for its age, might just be my best thrift store find to date. Not only is it playable, but it comes with its original case and accessories. If you're familiar with Mellophones, you've probably noticed this looks nothing like its modern counterpart. This instrument was wrapped kind of like a mini French horn, but with everything flipped. It's played in the right hand like the rest of the brass family instead of the left like a horn. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to show a comparison between these two instruments. But first, let me show you why I think this Mellophone in particular is so interesting. It's because of these, Crooks, which are interchangeable slides that allow you to change keys much like moving a capo on a guitar. Most of these old Mellophones I've seen play in the key of E flat. However, this one has two additional crooks that would allow you to play in F and D. I think it'd just be easiest for me to show you, so I'm going to play a couple of open notes, meaning without using valves, in the instrument's harmonic series, so you can hear for yourself the difference between these crooks. First, we'll start with the F crook. And now for the E flat crook. And lastly, the D crook. So that's pretty cool, but that's not all. Additionally, there are these notches on the tuning slides corresponding to each crook. Setting the slides at these notches is supposed to optimize your intonation. However, back in the 18th and 19th centuries, when these crooks came about, this wouldn't have been a thing since valves hadn't been invented yet. Back then, these so-called natural horns could only play notes within the harmonic series. You could also squeeze out a couple of extra notes if you either adjust the pitch with your embouchure or alter your hand position in the bell. But doing so would also make your tone really pinched and kind of ugly. So having crooks was really pretty necessary back in the olden days of brass to change keys. But they fell out of favor in the early 1800s when valves came about. Now even so, they still made a couple of instruments that had valves and crooks up into the early 1900s, like this Mello. But let's hear how it sounds compared to a French horn. Maybe it isn't fair to compare a professional caliber instrument against what was probably a student model with a stock mouthpiece, but I definitely prefer the sound of a French horn, which to me is more elegant and pure. It's a lot harder for me to coax a good tone out of a Mellophone, but not impossible. I mean, it kind of sounds like a mix between a trombone and a flugelhorn, but I don't think you're ever going to get one of these to sound like a French horn anytime soon. Funnily enough though, because the shelving on this isn't perfect, it kind of allows you to play more expressively. I almost feel like the tone will just bend to wherever you want it to go. I had a lot of fun doing some overkill vibrato on this thing. Even makes going back to the horn feel really stiff in comparison. But while these have their own unique timbres, I still prefer the tone of the horn. But maybe the Mello has a spot in jazz, and after all, the E flat crook would allow you to play alto and bari parts. But I think it's also worth talking about what to call this instrument. Even though I've been referring to it as a Mellophone throughout this video, if you look up tenor core, concert horn, or even ballad Mellophone, you're going to get search results that look like this. Trent Hamilton, a musician who makes lots of videos on brass instruments, has a horn which to me looks exactly like mine, except he says it's more accurately described as a tenor core instead of a Mellophone because of its smaller bell size and flare. Now, I love Hamilton's videos, and I acknowledge he knows much more about the brass family than I do, but I'm not 100% sure I agree with him here. I couldn't find any information online about what exactly classified as a tenor core, but I did find a document published by Frank Holton, the manufacturer of my instrument, in 1920, just a couple of years before this was made, that shows a picture of this instrument with the description concert horn or mellophone. Now, I feel this is just about as primary source as I'm going to get, and not even the manufacturer calls it a tenor core. So I feel reasonably safe in labeling this as a mellophone. But if you have any other insight that I don't know about what this is, feel free to let me know. What I think is really going on here is it's simply just an instrument with many names, and it's far from being the only one. You can call this a violin or a fiddle and be right either way. Same with timpani and kettle drums, upright and contrabass, the list goes on and on. It's possible that maybe mellophone is a broader term and tenor core is a subcategory of mellophone, but there's really not enough info online to tell. I'm just happy to have something like this in my collection. I think it's pretty special to have something this old and this complete that's in such good condition. But I'll leave a link to Trent's video if you want to check it out. Thanks for sticking around to the end.